Hi guys, I have before me a whole bunch of Ford CVH valve covers. I got a bunch. Well, we'll go into them in detail. Um, it'll pretty much be literally just the valve covers, and then we'll talk about the oil caps some too. But in front of me, I have a 1.6 valve cover, a 1.9 CFI, 1.9 EFI high output. We have a 1.6 turbo, 1.9 carb, and then a normal 1.6 at the end there. We'll talk about them all. We'll start with the beginning. That's the 1.6 stamped steel valve cover. In North America, they all came as stamped steel. They all looked like this. The only difference is the turbo has a bung right here coming out directly out of the back, and then they don't have this one in the corner anymore. So what this bung is for, anytime you see one in the corner of the valve cover, that means it's for the crankcase breather. So the crank on the back of the block, there is a bung, or there will be if the block's equipped with it, of course, but there will be a bung, and attached to that bung is a hose that goes up to the valve cover. And only certain valve covers will actually have that, because only certain engines have that. You can see that the turbo engines do not. That bung is omitted. Same with the CFI motors, I think, because my CFI valve cover does not have that bung. But the EFI motors, I should say the EFI high output motors, do have that as well. All the carbureted 1.6 models do. All the non-turbo EFI models have that as well. What's the other bung for? Well, this is what would be the PCV. There's no actual valve, but this is where all of your oil vapors from within the valve cover go around and get sucked into the air box. And so on the back side, there is a baffle, a little bit of a baffle, but there's none by the crankcase breather, because there doesn't really need to be. Anything that comes out of there is coming out of the crankcase, which is, well, the same stuff that's underneath the rocker cover. So, and nothing's getting sucked into that. Actually, what it is mostly just vapors and things coming in through that bung because they're leaving the crankcase. And then all these stamped steel ones, they all take I call it the one turn oil cover. So here's a cap. We turn it a little less than 90 degrees, pops right out. These don't particularly seal well. It's just, a rubber flange that relies on the mating surface to be clean and pretty, and they're rarely clean and pretty. So they almost always leak oil. They don't seal very well at all. All these 1.6 valve covers, they all have these weird protrusions along the rim of the valve cover. Little tangs and things that can do a number on a synthetic valve cover gasket. And see that the ridge doesn't even go all around the valve cover, so when these leak oil, oil will collect in these trays and then immediately leave, dripping all over your engine or inside the spark plug holes of the head. And they drip a lot. These bungs, the hoses that come on these are awfully brittle, especially now that they're coming up on 50 years old. They get really brittle, and they stop sealing here. They also stop sealing here. So any bung on the back of these guys are just going to leak. Not horribly, but every hour you drive it, it will drip at least once. Guaranteed, unless you put all new hoses and clamps on those. And then, like I said, these don't seal worth a darn, and they're not baffled, so they will drip. Like I said, for every hour of these running, they will drip at least once out of every single bung and the filler cap. Now moving on to the 1.9 stuff, they're really similar. They changed the oil cap So this is now a 1,000,000 mile thread cap. There you go. You can see. And then once you put it on, it seals nice, and then it clicks. It doesn't let you over torque it. It's really the same cap they had that Ford's used on every other engine from the 90s until recently. They're probably still using some of those. But they seal well. They have a nice rubber O-ring on the bottom side that's really big. So as long as the mating surface is half good on the head, they seal quite well. And even if they should leak, you can see that this has a raised ring around it. They all of these screw ones are like that. So should any oil, wiggle out of these threads, or when you're pouring oil into these and you make a little bit of a mess, it's always contained in these little holes. It's like that for all of the 1.9 valve covers. It's quite nice that way, really. This one only has the one bung in the back for the PCV system. The CFI, for all I know, does not have a crankcase breather. So they use some other way, I think, to breathe out the crankcase, equalize the pressure between the valve cover and the crankcase, but I can't confirm that. I haven't had a CFI in to know. But they still baffle this side for the PCV, that's fine. They still don't baffle the oil filler, that's fine. If this had a corner bung on it, it wouldn't be baffled. So all it is a stamped steel. These do have a lip all around the sides, unlike the 1.6, and it does not hang down, so you can put this on any gasket whatsoever, and it will not hurt your gasket in the long term. Just know that these stamped steel ones are prone to mushrooming on the bottom side around each of these holes from people who over torque their bolts and thus strip threads in the head. Not me, okay? Don't do that crap. It's not a fun fix. You have no idea how many heads I have to helicoil. Ugh. But back to business. That kind of covers the CFI head, or the CFI valve cover. You can tell these apart from the Carb ones because they have the oil fill over here. The Carb ones, they have the oil fill on the right, just like that, because they take the same intake box and snorkel as the 1.6 does. They just updated the cap, so it's the spin and click instead of the one turn, single turn. But they still don't put a baffle under that or anything. It's, aside from the oil cap and then the raised ledge around the outside of the valve cover, pretty much making a tray. Aside from that, it's the same as the 1.6. Moving on, we got the 1.9 EFI high output. Like I said, all 1.9s have the same oil cap. This one's a little bit different because it's cast. They actually do powder coat these from the factory. And on the top, they machine it to a nice pretty shape. And then they clear coat it, so that's why they kind of turn yellow. I don't know if it comes across well on the camera, but they just yellow over time. And then underneath that clear coat, they do corrode. There's only a few bungs on this. It's just got the 3 ports. I say ports because this hole here is obviously not a bung, but that's all it's got all the way around. It's just that. I don't know what this front one is for. I can't remember. Sadly, I don't have the car this came off of to tell you, but this bung here is for the crankcase breather, the pressure equalizer, and then this port here is for, it will take a little right hand angle that goes to the not the air box, but it's the incoming snorkel that goes between the air box and the intake manifold on the EFI motors. So this is your PCV with those. We'll flip it around to the back side You'll see that the places where the bolts go, it's a lot thicker because it's cast. And also, these are a lot less prone to leaking pretty much everywhere. These don't leak at all. And then they have a really interesting baffle system. So it's kind of this wind tray kind of deal. You can see it's kind of blocked off there. Kind of like so oil only gets into that port via this area of the head where not much is going on. So not much gets up in there. They say these are ideal for, well, pretty much any of the engines. They're a higher capacity. I should say they have a better dry volume, meaning that these suckers are crazy deep. So they're really good for all applications. Because of that, they're cast aluminum, so they dissipate heat better. They're powder coated on the outside, keep the heat in a little bit better, avoid hot spots. And then the baffle system is pretty nice. And they have these bungs in a handy location, all on the right hand side, making it pretty clean, allowing you for a tidy hose arrangement too. The issue is this will only work with certain engines. Like I said, every single valve cover fits on every single head just fine. The problem is, this will not work with a carbureted snorkel system. This will also not work with a CFI snorkel system. This will only work with EFI and turbo engines, unless you take like your carb air box and cut the walls off of it to make it thinner. Then you can fit this in front of it without much issue. But if you don't want to modify your carb's air box or your CFI air box, then you don't want this. It won't really do you any good. For the turbos, that's where the baffles make a big difference, because if you have to run a PCV system, the PCV on these stainless steel ones isn't too great, especially with that one leaky bung. It's just a pain. Here they simplify it, and they don't have any bungs in bad locations, because with the turbo they have that one bung in the center here, which would not work with any carb or CFI motor. It could be adapted to the non-turbo EFIs, but it would not work on the EFI high output. Having a corner bung here, the turbo uses that corner bung, the carb one does, the CFI does, all of them use it except the EFI high output, because there's just nothing on the intake manifold for it. But like I said, it's handy having all of them right here. Works out great. You can put a little cap breather here, and then you don't need a PCV. Or you can stick one on the top, but I don't know if your hood will close. That's kind of all the differences between these. I can get you a close-up of my turbo valve cover. See, it has that one port, or bung, sorry, right there in the middle of the valve cover on the back. When these first came out, some of these had a sticker in the center that said SVO 1.6 CVH. And the oil caps vary on these. Some are the octagon. Some are the hexagon, like that. That's my only yellow one. Most of mine are black. But they do vary in color. And then over here, I do have another single turn one, and this one's rather interesting. I don't know if this came on that engine or if this is from a different 80s or 70s Ford. Because I don't have any others like it, and it tells you what oil to use. The yellow and black ones do too, but it's silk screened on, so eventually it wears off. Well, this is actually casted with the plastic. But these don't look too pretty. The octagons don't look too pretty. But I do like these guys. They look nice, and with them being clickable, actually worked around so that it's, you know, perfectly in line with their whole rest valve cover. And then I have this guy. This is a spin-on one, but I don't think it's for a CVH. It is an octagon one. It doesn't click anymore. I don't know if it used to or not, but it no longer does. You can see, thread it on. If it's really loose and it gets snug. Oh, hey, now it's staying snug, and yep, and now it's loose again. Yep. So this one has its issues, but they're not pretty. And these octagon ones, this one in particular, does not fit within the recessed portion of the filler slot, filler hole. You know, so those, they just don't work out very well. These guys, they're awesome. Like I said, if yours goes to hell, you can grab one off of any other 90s, 2000s Ford engine, no problem. But that kind of covers everything I wanted to go over. Someday I'll get in some aftermarket ones. I might even get some second gen or third gen Escort Focus valve covers. I'm really hoping I can have a Ford Motorsport one sometime. They're really neat. They're shaped just like this one, really, but it's all cast aluminum, and it's got a whole bunch of cooling fins going from left to right, and in the center there's a square that says Ford Motorsport. But I think it only has one bung in the back.